Good afternoon. Well, we're toasting again. It's in the 90s. I go out, I try to go early or to go late enough. And the trees protect somewhat from the heat from the sun, not always. So there are a couple of issues that I haven't talked about recently, and I've watched how it's developed, and I'm sure you have too. It was the visit by Speaker Pelosi to Taiwan. Now, this is a thing I've tried to figure out since I was a kid, and I've tried to figure it out more recently in how Pelosi fits into this terribly tragic political theater of communism versus democracy, which is really how it started and what's it about. So let's drill back. There's a notion that China is only one China. However, there is an ambiguity about Taiwan. And it goes back to Chiang Kai-shek and a lot of, wrestling back and forth there as China became communist and Taiwan became separate and unequal and subject to coercion. But the diplomatic policy turned into, we won't talk about it or act upon it too much, but that's changed. There was a notion of one China with different systems, and this was proposed to Hong Kong. So to Hong Kong they say, one China, but you, Hong Kong, will be part of our China, but you will have a different system. Well, that didn't work out, as we know. So we have data points to tell us that China may say one thing, but is not prepared to act upon it. And we have Hong Kong as an example. Now, in 1989, I think it was, we had Tiananmen Square, and children, young men and women, students, were attacked in the streets. The tanks ran over people. And a young congresswoman from California was very upset about this and saw films about it and went to China, I believe, with two other members of Congress. I believe one was a Republican and one was a Democrat. And they were objecting. And this just drove her mad to find some resolution. And what she finally came up with was that if she could extend the visas of those students from China who were here, she would save them from punishment when they returned to China. And she made that a mission in her legislative life. And she went after it, and the administration resisted her, and Democrats resisted her. But over time, she prevailed. And it was critically important to her that these students not be treated that way for having expressed what they believed to be correct. So why is she going to Taiwan? She goes at a time, interestingly enough, when our Secretary of State Blinken actually had a public argument with the head of China about its acts, undemocratic acts, its autocratic acts, its monarchical acts. And it was pretty heated and on TV, and some thought that Blinken was just making hay for the home troops here. Now, Biden, we know, also said to the public when asked about it that we would stand by our treaty obligation with Taiwan, and implicit was, should they be attacked, what would we do? Would it be like Ukraine? Would it be more involved than that? And those issues were left open. So that's the context in which Nancy goes to Taiwan. And she went there evocative of when Eisenhower went there, who I believe is the only president who ever went to Taiwan. And he stood before the people in support of democracy. This was at a time when it was unformed what China's intentions were toward Taiwan. And Taiwan has become for us a great source of chips for certain manufactured goods, and the United States is a major customer of that, if you will. But we also have what Russia is doing, and we have to be on guard to resist Taiwan becoming China's Ukraine, if you will. And it seems to be an open secret that Putin has sought China and Korea perhaps to flex their muscles. It wouldn't surprise me if they had a secret tri-nation state agreement. So what Nancy did as speaker was assert the truth that Taiwan is a democracy, should be respected as such, and should be treated as such, and that, without saying it exactly in these words, to deprive them of their rights is an international cause to be concerned and to act in defense. Now, presently, that means we have sent both defensive and aggressive weaponry to Taiwan. And some say, as if Nancy is not well schooled and on firm ground in our positions. Why did she do that? Look at all the trouble she's caused. Well, it shows China is anxious and desperate that it would engage in war games around Taiwan after her visit, after Biden, and after others have addressed this issue. And as Nancy said, it's funny how people didn't say as much when men went to Taiwan, but when she goes. Well, she is the speaker, and I think she deserves the attention she got. And I'm talking about the positive attention she got, the support. And here's another irony. There are Republicans and Democrats who support her conduct. And I think that is the path of the new America, if you will, that we start finding common ground on issues that matter to world security, national security, to those values that we claim to espouse. And in a footnote, I would say that also means chasing those who violated our laws when they tried to overthrow our government. Now, let's choose Roe v. Wade, for example. There's been an interesting development. That is, some doctors say they're going to shun those states who are anti-abortion. So OBGYN is maybe not going to show up in some of these states. And I don't know if that's an unfair and harsh result, but I think it makes sense. If I'm a doctor, why should I go into a nation state that, a regular state, who would not allow me to fulfill my medical oath? I think that's right, and I think it's what I should do, I suppose, as a doctor, if I were one of these OBGYN, I'd be on the border, and we would have a clinic, and we would continue to tend to people who had health questions up to and including whether they should have an abortion or how they could have one that was safe for them. And especially those women, but not exclusively, who have concerns about, pregnancies that are troubled and miscarriages as happens. The Republicans, of course, in recent days, besides shunning the care of women in connection with their health, in connection with birth and so forth, they don't want to support family aid that has been proposed by the Mormon candidate from Utah. Interesting, Mitt Romney. He can't find support to help families, which really puts the lie to these people, meaning the Republicans, not to Mitt Romney. Another thing in terms of health for people, there was a proposal that there should be a $35 cap on insulin. The Republicans wouldn't agree to that either. There was a vote, I think it was 57 to 43, which reflected the fact that some Republicans understood that was important. Again, that's looking ahead. And the last is kind of a local peak, if you will, on my part. I heard on Wash Radio, 97.1 today, a commercial by Christians. And I've seen several of the stations out my way in the Virginia, D.C., Maryland area are turning to Christian music, which sounds like regular music until it becomes heavy laden with how our imaginary friends are going to help us. Sorry, but that's the way I see it. And I think that I'm not going to listen to radios that are taking money from Christians to sell us lies about how we should handle ourselves and our government. And I have some of my friends claim that their religion gives them life and meaning and so forth. And long ago I decided that what I can't verify, and that sounds preposterous, is not a way to run my life, nor is it a way to allow those who believe in myths that may help them run other people's lives and force them to do things that, frankly, make no goddamn sense. Pardon the reference. So, here we are. We're out. It's hot. I'm warm. And there's some good things going on, and that's nice. And we have to double down on the bad things that are going on, because we can't put up with this. We don't have to have evenings in which we're concerned about this stuff. We have to stop it, and we have to stop it in the cradle. That is, the cradle of autocracy that would overcome democracy. So, all the best. Goodbye from the Cathedral of Trees.